Okay, welcome back to Drive Home Reviews is All Elite. And once again, I want to thank you all because last week I achieved my goal and this was the least watched wrestling review show on YouTube. So thank you for your non-patronage. I'm just messing. I actually find it really funny, especially since I just do these for goofs. Anywho, so a lot to talk about last night, night one of Grand Slam, and boy howdy, a lot went down. Loaded card, great matches, just a lot of great stuff. It was a fun night of wrestling. And I gotta say right off the bat, one of the things I love about AEW is since they only do the 4 pay-per-views a year, and I have qualms with the way they do their pay-per-views, but because they only do the 4 a year, it means that sporadically throughout the year, we get these big event Dynamites where you get a pay-per-view level card and for free, and I love that. I just think that's a great way to keep the interest in the product and everything. I truly dig it, and it doesn't make their pay-per-views feel less special. It all just adds together. I think it's really smart, and so I have to kiss their ass just right off the bat. And let's just get right into it. All right, so a lot to talk about. So first up, Ring of Honor World Title. Claudio Castagnoli versus Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho is your new ROH World Champion. Nobody saw that coming. It's got a lot of people speculating if this means they are finally close to inking some kind of TV deal for Ring of Honor. I hope so. I really hope so, because I want to see this roster kind of get split. I want to know who they're going to have in that Ring of Honor crew and who's going to be the the Dynamite crew. And I hope that they really do kind of put a division between those. You know, if Chris Jericho is the ROH champion, then I only want to see him on ROH. You know, I don't want them to do this, Raw Super Show shit of bouncing back and forth. But that's a whole other rant. We can talk about that later. The match itself was pretty decent. Biggest thing for me is Chris Jericho suplexing Claudio from the ring apron out to the floor. It was a sick looking spot, like really sick, and they hit it great. So yeah, I mean, it was decent. It was a decent opener. I think Castagnoli is probably going to be a big name in that ROH picture. I know a lot of people are disappointed that he lost the title so early. I kind of am too a little bit, but I think if you're going on to a TV deal, having Chris Jericho as your name brand champion is a smart way to go. I mean, it's worked before, so why not? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean? And I have a feeling what they're going to be building towards is him and Daniel Garcia, and Daniel Garcia taking that title from him. I really believe that's where they're headed. So yeah, it was a decent match. Nothing really to write home about outside of kind of the newsworthy elements of Jericho winning the title. But next up, man, we got a big one here. And a lot of people say this should have been done at the pay-per-view, but I don't really care because I think it built the rivalry a lot more to have them lose at the pay-per-view. But the Acclaimed versus Swerve in Our Glory, and the Acclaimed are the new AEW World Tag Team Champions, and well earned. This was a good match. These 4 guys work really well together. Great chemistry. There are some fun spots in this match, especially with Keith Lee. There was a spot early on where he did a Hurricane Rana, and the camera gets up to him afterwards, and he's just sitting there smiling. He's just smiling, this really charming smile. It's like, that's why people love that guy. That's why people love Keith Lee, is he's just, I don't know, there's just something very personable and very relatable about him. Maybe it's just the secret oath all fat men take, to always have each other's backs. But I dig Keith Lee, and I just love that moment. Again, they work great. I think they're getting ready to make Swerve a monster heel. And he's been playing that part really subtly and really well. It's been a nice build. I think their match at the pay-per-view is probably better, but this one, it worked really well. And the only thing I didn't like about it, and this is kind of my only stink from the entire night, is that the first 3 matches all had wonky finishes of the ref being out of position and somebody pulling some shenanigans. And even Taz commented on it, says, wow, that's like 3 matches in a row where that's happened. And like, you know, when your announcers are noticing it. And what's really weird is that AEW doesn't normally pull that. They pull the ref out of position and cheat to win once in a great while. They're doing it a little bit more these days. And it's not bad, but I preferred it back in the day when if you lost, you lost. You know, and if you were a strong wrestler and you were a strong personality, and you won coming back, then people forgave it. You know, it wasn't, you know, this whole thing, we got to keep this person strong. Because this one ended with Billy Gunn hitting Swerve Strickland with a Famouser on the outside and then rolling him back into the ring so the Acclaimed could pick up the win. And I know that the Acclaimed are kind of doing the heel face thing where they're, I guess the best way to equate it is kind of the Eddie Guerrero thing, the lovable scoundrels who, you know, yeah, Eddie Guerrero would cheat to win, but we loved when he did. You know, it was part of his character, it was part of his charm. And the Acclaimed kind of have that same, I'm not going to say they're as good as Eddie Guerrero, but they have that same kind of personality of where lovable scoundrels, you know we're going to cheat, but you're going to love us anyway. So it didn't hurt them too much, but I feel like to win their first championship, I think they should have done it without the assist. My personal belief. I do think it weakened them a bit in the moment. But I don't want to be a party pooper because I'm really happy the Acclaimed won the championship. And I have to say that they are one of the first real AEW success stories. These are 2 guys that were on Dark and were thrown together. And everybody was just like, oh, there's going to be a jobber team. And for a long time, they were a jobber team. And suddenly they just started gaining heat and getting over. And, you know, they are kind of the antithesis of what AEW was supposed to be. This place to build new up-and-coming talent and let them get over on their own. And they did that. So I'm a big fan of the Acclaimed, and I'm really happy for them in this. And I'm interested to see where Swerve and Keith Lee go from here. They're obviously going to end up in a feud fairly soon, I would imagine. And then it's going to be interesting to see where they go from there, you know, because just 2 really, really great talents. And so, yeah, great match. Then Pac versus Orange Cassidy. This was a decent for the All-Atlantic Championship. This was decent. Pac and Orange have some fun chemistry together. Just the differences in their characters and the way they go about planning for a match. There was some fun mind games in this. Where, like, at one point Pac climbs to the top to do the Falcon Arrow, and Orange Cassidy just sticks his leg straight up in the air before he jumps. You know, that familiar spot of the guy jumps, you know, the pundits call it the flying nothing, where they land on their feet, but they still get hit by the guy's boot. So it was a fun spot, and there were a lot of cute things like that, and Orange and Pac have always had a really, really decent chemistry and good matches. My question is what are the rules for this All-Atlantic Championship? Can we get something official on that? Can we get some kind of like ruling? Because my understanding of when it was introduced was it was going to be for people born outside of, you know, native to somewhere other than the United States. I thought that was the whole deal. It was kind of a sub-classification of the mid and lower card to give them a championship. That was my understanding of it, especially by the guys they had competing in that first 4-way. The fact that Pac's been defending it all over the world on Dark. The match with Chris Sabin, that's what I understood it to be. But now Orange Cassidy's challenging for it. So is this just another, European Championship, because if it is, I don't think that's the smart way to go. I think keeping it with a criteria that it has to be for people born or native to outside the United States. Therefore, there's a classification of people who can and cannot challenge for it. I think that makes it unique, and that gives it a life of its own. Just saying, oh, here's just another mid-card title, it's going to get lost in the shuffle, and it's not going to be as special. So, that's my main question, is what are we doing with that Mid-Atlantic Championship, or All-Atlantic Championship, or whatever the hell it's called? Because I like the idea of it. I liked it back in Impact when they tried doing it with the Global Championship. I thought that was a neat idea. Okay, a belt that can only be challenged for by people outside the United States. That's an awesome gimmick. And they blew that out of the water right away, and I'm a little worried AEW is doing the same thing. So can we please get a ruling on what that title is, and like who can and cannot challenge for it? I would like it. And again, this is the third match of the night that ended with shenanigans. Maybe it wouldn't have been so bad if it wasn't like the third straight match of the night that ended with shenanigans. But a decent match. Kind of the sleeper match of the night, and I think one that people are talking about, but not for the right reasons. Well, it's for the right reasons, but it's kind of being overshadowed. The four-way match for the interim women's world title, which I hate that interim thing. I like the concept of it, but it always does make it feel like the person holding it isn't actually the champion. And we'll talk about that here in a second. Toni Storm, Britt Baker, Ember Moon, that's not her name now, but Ember Moon, I can't remember what her name there is, and Serena Deeb in a fatal four-way, good fatal four-way. Really, to me, it was the coming out party for Serena Deeb. She was like ruling that match, and she does not get the press that she deserves, and I think part of that's AEW's fault. They need to hype her more, because she's like a hybrid of Dean Malenko and Chris Kanyon. And those are two wrestlers that I would like to be a hybrid of, to be quite honest. And she was coming up with some amazing offense, really unique stuff, and she was getting a lot of pops for it. Like, the crowd was hot for what she was doing. And I was really impressed. I was like, damn! So I want to see more of her in situations like that. So I thought she really was the standout star. There was a moment here, so I think Britt Baker broke her nose again. There was this moment where, again, Ember Moon, and again, I know that's not her name there. I can't think of what her name there is. She had, I think she had Toni Storm on her back, and she had Britt Baker on her back, and she caught Serena Deeb, and she was coming in for like a flying tackle, and she did a fall away slam, and her butt landed right on Britt Baker's face, and her nose began to bleed like a pig, so poor Britt, like, she's got to wear a nose guard or something, because that sounds like the butt right on her face. Oh dear. But this was a really decent and fun match, quick paced. I think all the ladies looked great. Toni Storm ends up winning it, no surprise there, but then the surprise did happen. So the heels begin to beat down the faces. Jamie Hayter comes out, and of course they've been doing a whole thing with her and Britt Baker. Are they friends? Are they not? Hayter reaffirms her allegiance to Britt Baker. They're all hugging. They're beating the shit out of Toni Storm. And then some weird music plays, and everyone's like, okay, whose music is this? And then out comes Saraya, the former Paige of the WWE, and I lost my shit. And everybody in that building lost their shit. Because Paige, I'm just going to call her Paige for the time being, until I get used to calling her Saraya. Or Saraya, I can't even pronounce her new name. Paige is a really unique talent. Now, I don't know, and that's kind of the question the next morning, just how physical she's going to be. For those who don't know, she retired a few years back due to a pretty severe neck injury that she sustained in a match with Sasha Banks, I believe. But in the interim, we've seen Daniel Bryan come back, or Bryan Danielson come back from a similar injury. We've seen Edge come back from a similar injury. So it's possible that it is healed to a point where she can be cleared and can actually get in the ring. If that's the case, I'm really looking forward to what's going on. Even if it's not, she's a great presence to have there. So I don't know what they're going to do with her, and only time will tell. But I was so excited to see her back. And I also hope that this time away has given her some time to clean up her personal life. I know she was in a bad way there for a while. I think there were some addiction problems. I know for a long time she was in some not so healthy relationships, and I'm hoping that the time that she has spent kind of not being there has given her some time. She looked great, she looked healthy, so I hope for her sake that she is good to go and everything like that. I don't think Tony Khan or AEW would let her in the ring if she wasn't medically cleared. I seriously doubt that. But yeah, it was a big surprise, huge, and one that no one saw coming. One of these ones that nobody had reported on, nobody was even thinking this was going to happen, and there she was. So I'm really looking forward to see what they do with her, because I really like her as a performer. And then, of course, we come to the main event, the crowning of the AEW World Championship between Blackpool Combat Club members Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson, and my God, what a match. I thought these guys were amazing, and because when these guys wrestle, it's a fight, and it is a down and dirty fight, and it looks like a fight. This is not a spot fest. This is not a lot of big moves. This is two guys beating the ever-loving shit out of each other, and it looks real. And they just tore into each other. Some of those slaps. It was funny, earlier in the night, Jericho and Castagnoli were trying to do the slap thing where they slap each other's chest and the audience goes, woo! And they weren't really getting that much of a connection. The slaps were a little weak. And then these two guys come out, and those slaps, they were echoing so much, I swear to God, they hurt me. I swear my chest got red from it. I was like, fuck! So yeah, these two can fight all the time as far as I'm concerned. They're just awesome together, and they really go at it. And of course, end of the night, the predictable thing happened, and that's fine with me. Jon Moxley is your 3-time world champion, which again, he was the interim world champion, so I think he's actually the 4-time world champion. So that's why I don't like the interim thing, because why aren't they counting that as a world championship ring? He was the interim world champion, But anyway, I know a lot of people were upset about this, because a lot of people wanted Bryan to win. But here's the thing. MJF said it earlier tonight in a promo, says they're not fighting to see who's going to be the champion. They're fighting to see over who's going to lose the championship. And that is true. And I think everybody knows it's true. We all know what's coming. And Tony and AEW are smart enough. They usually don't swerve us. When they set the table for something, they usually give you the meal that you ordered or that you wanted, because they're smart like that. They don't think it's, I'm going to swerve you and that way you'll tune in again. It's like, no, I'm going to give you exactly what you want to see, and then you'll tune in because it's what you want to see. And they have been setting the table for MJF for a long time, and it's his dinner now. And when thinking about it and thinking who is going to be the better opponent for his coming out party, his coronation as the world champion, this is a big moment. This is a big moment, not just for AEW, not just for him, but for AEW. This is one of their first truly homegrown stars that they're going to put that belt on. And he needs a big coming out party. And Moxley's the guy to give it to him. I agree. I've heard some criticism that we don't want Moxley just to become the transitional champion guy. And I agree with that. But he's such a reliable hand, and he holds the belt with such gravitas that I think it has to be him. You know, Mankind has to take down Triple H. You know, Stone Cold had to take out Shawn Michaels. You know, that's just the way it had to be to make it a proper coronation. And I heard another person, I think it was on Wrestling Observer Radio, where they said this is kind of the closest thing our generation is going to get to a Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes. And I think that's an excellent analogy. I think that is a perfect analogy. That they are kind of the modern embodiment of those characters, if not those men themselves. And I just think Mox and MJF have great chemistry together. Both just in terms of the clash of their personalities, their promos, and it's not to say that obviously Bryan Danielson can have chemistry with a broom. He's that fucking good. But I think for MJF's coronation, which is what this should be, which is what Full Gear needs to be, I think you need to have the guy that represents that championship in there with him. And let's be honest, he is now, I'm counting it as a 4-time championship. I don't care what they say. Mox is the guy associated with that title at this point. 4 reigns as champion. You know? So you need him to win. So yes, I think they will give it to Bryan eventually. And when they do, it'll be a nice, a good, meaty title reign. He may be the one to dethrone MJF. You don't know. That could be what they're planning. But I think for what they've got planned and for where we all know they're going, I think the right choice was made. And I'm very much looking forward to what's going to go down there. And I thought it was a good way to end the night. So good show all around. Again, this was a really decent show. Not decent, it was a really good show. This was in the A category if I was ranking them that way. This is like an A- or something like that. I didn't like all of the screwy finishes. That I did not like, but the matches were good. They built. I think if there was a dud, it might have been Pac versus Orange Cassidy, but again, just because I'm very unclear as to that title. But anyway, I really liked the matches, really liked the night. I had a good time, and it's a tribute to AEW that amidst all the problems they've had backstage and all the negative press that they've gotten, I've been saying it since this happened, their on-screen product has not diminished, and in some ways, I think their on-screen product has actually gotten better. So I think they're handling this as well as they can, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. So I had a great time, good night of wrestling, and yeah, another good Dynamite. All right, so there you go. There's my review for Dynamite from, I believe it was the 21st of September, 2022. Thank you for watching. Got to go to work now, and drive safe, and I will see you at the arena. I still don't like that catchphrase.